8 out of 10 people will experience back pain at some point of their lives, and weak core muscles is one of the contributors to this issue. Athletes are also 3 times more likely to get injured if they have weaker core muscles. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exercises and the methods to strengthen your core so you can improve your physical and athletic performance and lower the risk for injuries. So let's get started. Core is the central link between your upper and lower body, and its primary function is strength, balance, stability, and control during movement. Rather being all about the visible abs, the core is about strength and coordination and control during almost all the movements you make, from lifting, twisting, walking, and standing. The 4 functions of the core are spinal stability. Core muscles protects the spine and allows good posture. Transfer of force. Core allows to transfer power from upper to lower body, for example, when we sprinting, jumping, or kicking, and vice versa. Core allows to transfer power from lower to upper body, for example, when we throwing or punching. Balance and stability. Core muscles allows you to be stable and under control during dynamic and heavy movements. For example, when we landing from the back jump and we have to absorb the force, or performing a heavy squat or a deadlift. And the last one, movement control. Core assists with bracing, twisting, rotating, and resisting unwanted force. Let's say when we have to catch a ball or absorb upcoming force. Core muscles allows you to resist the unwanted movement. Movements of the core are spinal flexion, that's when we're bending forward, and the main muscle or the main movement during this movement is your rectus abdominal muscles, or more commonly known, your six-pack muscle. And the exercises that I like to do for this type of a muscle group and movement is some type of a variation where you're bringing your lower body towards your upper body. So for example, maybe straight leg lifts on the bench or on the machine, or hanging leg raises. I also like to do some type of exercise where you're bringing your upper body towards your lower body, like for example, medicine ball sit-ups or cable crunches. The next movement of your core is your spinal extension. That's when you're moving backwards or maintaining a good posture. And the main muscles involved in this movement are your spinal erectors. The exercises that I like to do for this type of a movement are back extension, good morning, stiff leg deadlift, glute ham raises. Those are all good options for this type of a movement and spinal erector muscles. Then we have lateral flexion. That's where we're bending unilaterally to one side. The main muscles involved in this movement are your external and internal obliques. And the exercises I like to do are side bends on the bench, or barbell side bends, or dumbbell side bends to one side. That's where you're resisting and crunching on the one side of your body. And then we have spinal rotation. That's where we're rotating your spine from side to side. And your internal and external obliques are also involved in this movement. And the exercises for that, I like to do some type of wood chop variations or Russian twist variations. And then we have anti-movement exercises where we resisting movement of the spine. So for example, anti-extension, for that we can do plank variations, anti-rotations like pillows press, and then anti-lateral flexion like single arm carry. All those variations are good to stabilize your spine. However, personally, I don't rely too much on plank variations or holds because it's harder to progressively overload on them, meaning that increasing the intensity or resistance. For example, with plank, if you're holding the plank for 3 to 4 to 5 minutes, at some point it's become very time consuming and not a very efficient way to train. With the plank, you can also add more weight on your back, for example, add more plates. However, if you're training on your own, it's harder to do that. So I primarily rely on dynamic movements where you including that eccentric and concentric portion of the movement. And with planks variations, you're just working on isometric strength. And I do believe that if you're incorporating all type of movements and you're moving your spine to its full range of motion, you're gonna be able to strengthen your core muscles and be able to resist force as well. So I don't rely on the plank variations, but I wanted to mention them because I think it's good to supplement them occasionally. It really depends on the individual or athlete experience, but personally, I don't do them as much. And then we have those deep core muscles, the stabilizers, like transverse abdominal muscles, your diaphragm, pelvic floor muscles. I believe that those muscles are also engaged when we doing all those spine movements or core exercises that I mentioned before. Now let's talk about how to train core muscles. And the core muscles should be trained like any other muscles, such as your legs, your back muscles, your arms. The core training should not be some type of afterthought where you're doing few crunches after the workout or doing a little bit of a plank and that's it. The core training should be planned and structured. We should be using specific core exercises in full range of motion with proper technique and be able to progressively overload, meaning that with time we should challenge the core muscles in some way because the muscles in your core are gonna adapt to the stimulus. So in order for them to keep progressing and getting stronger, we need to challenge them and or progressively overload in some way by either increasing the repetitions. Let's say week 1 you did 10 reps, week 2 you're trying to do 12 reps, week 3 14 reps, so on and so forth. Or you can increase the rep ranges, or you can increase the weight, do more sets. But the idea is that with time you should be challenging your core muscles in some way. The frequency of training for core, I would say the good range is around 1 to 3 times per week, anywhere between 3 to 6 sets per exercise, and rep ranges around 6 to 30 repetitions. I would suggest to mix different rep ranges for optimal results. And we want to be using exercises that target all 4 movements in your spine, such as your spinal flexion, spinal extension, rotation, and lateral flexion if you want to strengthen your core muscles. Now, one of the pet peeves that I have when it comes down to core training is some people modifying exercises for different muscle groups to have more core activation. Like for example, some people doing squats on the Bosu ball because they say that they're gonna have more core activation. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that type of approach because when you're doing squat, this is an exercise primarily for your legs, not for your core. I mean, your core is gonna be engaged, but the goal of this exercise is to strengthen your quad muscles and your glute. So when you're doing exercise on an unstable surface, first of all, your technique is gonna suffer. You have a higher risk for injuries because you are unstable, and you're actually gonna be lifting significantly less weights. Like for example, I'm squatting over 300 pounds and it's barbell squat, but I would not be able to do that on the Bosu ball. I mean, I'm not gonna be able to set up a barbell on my back and do squats on the Bosu balls. I will have to hold a dumbbell, and the heaviest dumbbell in my gym is like 130 pounds. So it's still significantly less on the squat. So I'm gonna have less activation in my quad muscles. So it takes away from my leg training because my legs are not being pushed hard enough because I'm on unstable surface. So it takes away from the leg training, and I also would argue that it takes away from the core training as well, because when you're lifting heavier weights, when you have to have, a heavy weight on your back when you're doing a barbell squat, your core muscles need to work hard to stabilize and resist that heavier load, comparing lighter load on the Bosu ball. So it takes away from the core training, takes away from your leg training. And again, squats are not necessarily a core exercise because you're not including the eccentric and concentric portion of the movement, it's just isometric. So how that makes sense, people also do that with other different exercises when they're doing presses on an unstable surface or some type of balance exercise. I'm not a big fan of this for the core. Some people also using like yoga or Pilates to strengthen the core. And don't get me wrong, I love yoga and Pilates. I think they are great. But many of those classes, from my experience, every class is a little bit different. They don't necessarily progressively overload or using enough resistance to strengthen the core. Is just body weight, and over time your body is going to adapt to that stimulus. So I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer doing specific exercises, for example, for legs or back, strengthening those muscles, do them properly, and doing specific exercises for the core instead of trying to mix everything at once, because I don't think that's the most optimum way to train. So having a strong core is very important for functionality, physical and athletic performance, to lower the risk for injuries. And I do believe that using those methods and exercises that I show you in this video will help you to strengthen your core. Thank you for watching. Please give me a huge favor. Please like, subscribe. That's gonna help with the algorithm and help me to create more content for you. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.